Hey everyone. Um, Everyone, not how grandiose. To the 40 or 50 of you who watch these things, hello. Hope you're doing well. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and I've got a lot of stuff going on that I want to talk to family and friends about, but I don't have time to do this one at a time. So, video coming out. And plus, a lot of you have called and emailed me. Thank you for caring, to ask what's going on. And so, update here. Sorry, this is going to be a fairly lengthy one, a little lengthier than normal. Jeez. And some swearing is probably inevitable. So, it's certainly likely, probably inevitable. Um, so, anyway, don't be listening to this at work. Couple big things going on, and I'll kind of tackle them in segments if I can. First one is my health. A lot of you already know this because you were on the massive text chain that I sent out, but quite a few of you don't. I was in the hospital at the end of April, I guess, last week of April, first week of May, somewhere around there. And I had that thing in February that Tri-City diagnosed as mesenteric paniculitis. It looks like that was probably a misdiagnosis or a partial diagnosis because 2 months later, in April, excuse me, I turned banana yellow and my pee turned orange. I recognize those as not being good things, so I went to Scripps Encinitas instead of Tri-City, and literally walked up to the front desk. And they took my name and information. They said, okay, go sit down in the chairs and you may be there for a few hours. And I didn't even get to the chairs. I got there and they were like, Brian, come on in. And I found out later in the process that, yeah, they saw me and they saw how yellow I was. And they said, this guy gets in right now. And I was in the hospital for 5 days. Gallstone, ultimately, clogged a bile duct, and I had pancreatitis. Esophagitis, which I didn't. They said, "Oh, it looks like you've been having acid reflux." I'm like, "Well, all right." And, I had a handful of times where I'd had that kind of acidy thing in the back of my throat at night, and they're like, "Oh no, it doesn't have to come up to be reflux." I'm like, "Okay, well then I don't know what's going on inside." And so my esophagus was all torn up. My duodenum, some people say, and then other people say duodenum. I don't know, potato. Was inflamed and had 4 ulcers on it. My kidney function and my liver function were being impacted because of the jaundice, because of all the blah, 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 blah. So I stayed in the hospital for 5 days. They pumped me full of fluids and pumped me full of antibiotics and, did all kinds of tests and poked me and prodded me, and much more so than Tri-City did. And their comment along the way was, the mesenteric paniculitis, if you watched that video or if I talked to you about it, that the mesentery is the area, the tissue that lines your abdomen and your spine and kind of interconnects with your intestines and stuff, and it keeps everything from jumbling around. If you didn't have a mesentery, my doctor told me, if you don't have a mesentery and you did a cartwheel, everything inside you would get all jumbled up. It's like the packing material in a box in a shipment. And it keeps everything from bumping into each other and moving around. And that got inflamed and squeezed everything, which really hurt. But when I was at Tri-City, what they diagnosed me with was mesenteric paniculitis, which is extremely rare. What Scripps Encinitas thinks is that I had a gallstone, just like I did at the end of April, and it pissed everything off, including the mesentery, and they focused on the mesentery being inflamed, and said, "Oh, it's mesenteric paniculitis," and they said that was probably not the actual illness that I had. It was just a result of everything going on inside, because ultimately, when they took my gallbladder out, they said it showed signs of having had gallstones before, of having had damage to it before. So I probably had other gallstones. It was funny because this time in April, I didn't go to the doctor. Duh, I'm a guy. I didn't eat much for 5 days. I didn't feel good, and I thought to myself, "Wow, this felt like the first 5 minutes of when I had mesenteric paniculitis back in February." But that went from literally at one point I was like, what's going on with my stomach? To 2 hours later, I was calling 911 on myself because I was in too much pain to walk. And um, to me, what I had recently was, it felt like the first 5 minutes of that where I was just like, what, something's wrong with my stomach. I don't feel right. But it never progressed beyond that. So I just kind of went, yeah, okay. But for 5 days, I ate like a piece of toast one day, and I ate a banana one day. And then I went to kefir. I was like, oh, let's get some, probiotics in me and that kind of thing. And so I drank a couple glasses of kefir, but all day, that's it. And the pain never progressed. So I wasn't doing anything about it until one day I woke up and looked at myself in the mirror and I looked like a banana. And I actually noticed a little bit of yellow the day before. And Melanie, who works for me, made the same comment. She goes, you seem a little yellow. And then the next day I was like banana yellow. I was like a minion. And my eyes, that was so creepy. My eyes were yellow. And I was like, okay, well, I got to do something about this. And then I peed and it was bright orange. I'm like, oh, I really got to called my doctor. And she's like, I want you in the ER, by this afternoon. Fun factoid, for those of us, even though I work in the industry, I didn't know this about ERs. I was like, can't I just go to a lab? And there's a reason they send you to the ER. The ER is a pain in the butt for us as people, because you go and you sit there for 8 hours and, but at the end of the 8 hours, they've run tests on you and they have the results. She says, if I send you to a lab, I can't send you to the lab until tomorrow because I have to approve it with your insurance. You go to the lab, they will only run half the tests we need, just the most basic. Those test results come back, and then your insurance company says, oh yeah, this is bad, you need more tests. And she says, if you go to a lab and get that kind of stuff, it's going to be at least 4 and probably 5 days, maybe even 6, before they have all the results. Whereas if you go to the ER, yes, it's a horrible day sitting there, waiting for everything to happen. You're going to waste 8 to 10 hours, but at the end of it, you're going to have your test done and they're going to know right away. And she goes, it's 5 days or 10 hours. Which one do you want? And she told me, she goes, you don't have the choice. You need to be in there. So when I walked in, I checked in and they saw me in triage from at the front desk. And I didn't even have a chance to go to a chair and sit down. They called me in, put the IV in me, started running tests. They put me in a hallway for a while, but as soon as my blood work came back, they came out and said, yeah, you're not going home. So 5 days later, I came out feeling better, that's for sure, but they still needed to take my gallbladder out. So a week later, I went back and had that done. That was fun. Oh boy. Pay attention to your body. So, right now, I had 4 little incisions. They were able to do the gallbladder removal laparoscopically and robotically, and the doctor was really happy with the way everything worked. I got these 4 little, less than half-inch little scars. It's not like the old days where they fillet you open and cut you up. There's even no stitches. I mean, they just glue them up. They put Band-Aids on it, and they said, there's a Band-Aid with a little sterile strip underneath. They said, take the Band-Aid off the next day and just wait for the sterile strip to fall off. They'll come off in a week, which is exactly the timing. They fell off on day 7 and day 8. And, it's totally fine. A week after I had the procedure, someone asked me if I felt okay. And I said, yeah, I think I'm 100%. And then 10 minutes later, I sneezed and it felt like someone kicked me in the stomach. So I'm like, okay, I'm not 100%. But after 2 weeks, I think I am 100% now. And, it's been I think it's a month today or a month tomorrow that I had the gallbladder removed. And it's good. I feel fine. I guess there's a whole spectrum of outcomes afterwards. I've read things and talked to people who say, I can't look at an avocado without hurting. It's because it's fats. Gallbladder processes your fats. And I know other people who said, I went back to eating exactly what I ate before and I've never experienced any pain. I've experienced mild discomfort twice. Mom had an order of sweet potato fries and I ate a few, not even thinking about it, that I'm not supposed to eat fried food. And I just totally forgot. And a few minutes later, I was like, oh, why do I feel my stomach? And I was like, oh, lay off the fries. Okay, good. And Crystal, who a caregiver for Mom, brought home frozen yogurt. And I ate frozen yogurt. And same thing, I was aware of my stomach. And that's really been it. And so my doctor is very happy with that because she said usually the first few days, the first few weeks are the worst, and you get better, like your pancreas can kind of take over the production of the bile. And, it's 6 months in is when you're when you know what you can and can't eat. And I have had nothing that I would consider pain. I've been a little bit aware of my stomach those 2 times, and that's it. So that bodes well for, going forward. Otherwise, I'm pretty good. I'm not yellow anymore. That's nice. I don't know if pink is good, but at least I'm not yellow. That was weird. Especially like I say, like a minion, like banana. So that's that. And then the other issue is mom. Mom continues to decline and get scary. And so while I was sick, we had a caregiver named Crystal who had moved in at the beginning of April. And, she's a couple years younger than me, mid-50s, and she's kind of like me where, I don't go to the doctor unless I'm sick. So she hadn't been to the doctor in forever. Well, right around that time, she was having dizziness issues and some stomach issues, and she was getting tests right before I went into the hospital and right after I went into the hospital. And she came back with this huge laundry list of things. And basically, she said, the day I got out of the hospital, she's like, look, I have to give notice because I can't be a caretaker. I need a caretaker. And so she had to move out. And she's okay, but she just needs a bunch of stuff done. And, Crystal had been very helpful, especially in the time that I was in the hospital. My God, family and friends and neighbors and stuff were so great in helping out in covering my mom, making sure that she wasn't alone, that she didn't wander off. And even with 2 people sleeping in the house, she managed to sneak out and get out of the house, and the police brought her home. And they didn't even know she had left, because she went out a back door and around the side, and, it was early morning and no one was awake yet. And, the neighbors saw her and called the police to pick her up. So, that's where mom is getting. She's getting lost all the time. And she thinks she's doing great. She thinks she runs the show. Oh, I do all the shopping. She hasn't been in a car. I mean, she hasn't driven a car in 4 years. But she thinks she does everything around here, and, really she does absolutely nothing around here. I hate to say this, but the only things she does around here is screw things up, because she wants to touch everything. Here comes one of the language things. She wants to touch everything, and she fucks up everything she touches. I mean, it is amazing. She'll open the fridge. After she's in the fridge, we'll find, the lettuce is in the freezer, and if we have ice cream, it's in the fridge, and, the ice cubes are in the fridge, and the grapes are in the other part of the freezer. And she just, we put signs on it. This is the fridge. This is the freezer. She can't tell. And we'll have everything just fine. And then she goes through and just messes it up. Her brain is stuck in failure mode. That's the only way I can put it. It is so weird to watch her, what's left of her brain, work, because it's just bizarre. So, she needs to be watched all the time. And, you can imagine she's been the person who runs her own life and her own house. And so she gets frustrated. Why is everyone watching me? Why do I always have someone with me? Who are these people? I don't know them. Don't tell me what to do. And so she's starting to get that kind of frustration and agitation and things. And that's becoming more and more common. So Crystal had to move out, which she moved out just last weekend. Man, it seems like it's been forever, but I'm recording this on a Thursday, and she moved out on Saturday, and I had new people move into our guest room on Sunday. People that we know that were referred to us. It's a mother and daughter who had been doing some housekeeping for us and things like that, and so we are familiar with them. And the mom's name is Sylvia. She's Hispanic, doesn't speak a lot of English, but she understands English, but isn't comfortable speaking it yet. But frankly, between her bad English and my bad Spanish and mom's bad Spanish, mom speaks better Spanish than I do, but we're communicating with her fine. And then her daughter Nicole, who is 12 but looks 17 and acts 25. I mean, she's been. I'm constantly shocked that she's 12. And she's born and raised here, so she's perfect English and stuff. And the 2 of them, frankly, have been great. They're very caring. They're on it. I mean, you show them how to do something once, and they've got it. I mean, and even a 12-year-old. And Nicole, the 12-year-old, is constantly can I get you anything else? And how can we help? And I mean, she's great. She's not a typical 12-year-old. I'll give her that. I've been very impressed with both of them. And and everything was fine and lovey-dovey, and mom would see them and be like, oh, hi, how are you? And then yesterday, something weird happened. I mean, mom has her flare-up moments and gets frustrated, and I have mom on the PACE program, which is an acronym for something, but it's basically for elderly people. It's insurance and a day center, and they provide in-home support, and their whole thing is to give people as much of a chance to stay in their own home as long as possible instead of going into facilities. And part of what they do is they have a day center to give caretakers a day off. They'll come in a bus, it's like a school bus for elderly people, and they'll pick you up and take them into a facility and feed them lunch and look at them medically and do any checkups that they need to do, but also they have activities and that kind of thing, and then bring them home. And I've noticed that mom comes back from that sometimes in a good mood, but agitated. There's like too many other things going on. I'm just guessing at that. But mom's been having a thing a lot lately where she doesn't recognize our house. She'll come back. She can leave for as quick as just going for a walk around in our neighborhood. And she comes back and she's like, whose house is this? Why are we in someone else's house? When do we have to leave? Oh my God, we have to leave before the landlords come back and find us here and kick us out. Things like that. Or just sometimes she just thinks we have to leave. Well, we're moving. No, we're not. And I was trying to figure out what she's been doing for the last couple months. And I think it's her version of packing. I would make air quotes if I could. I think it's her version of packing, where she'll bring something in from the garage, or she'll get something down off the top shelf of my closet, and she'll come up to me and say, what do you want to do with this? And it's, a board game that we've used twice in the last 15 years when we have company over or something like that. And I'm like, well, we need to put it back where it was, because why are we dealing with it? Let's just put it back in the garage. Or in the top shelf of my closet where we never look. And she's like, well, and she gets flustered, and it's like she wants to do something with this board game. I'm like, do you want to play the game? No. Well, but I need to know what we do with the box. I'm like, frickin' put it back. And so we go through that a lot. But sometimes, she'll just, I'll see her and she's loading things into her purse, and, silly things, an umbrella in the summer, and a crossword puzzle book, which she never does crossword puzzles, and one shoe, and she'll say, I'm packed. I'm like, what the hell? So we've been doing that a lot, almost daily, but yesterday got bad, where she eventually, she kept saying, I don't know this house, where are we? We have to leave. No, Mom, this is our house. This is our house. Yes, this is our house. Really? We live here? Yes, this is our house. I mean, just and round with that kind of conversation. And then she, right before dinner time, again, sundowning. For those of you going through this with your parents or having seen this with other family members, late afternoon through sunset, they get super crazy. And, right before dinner time, she's got 3 sweaters, on or draped over her arm. And, and she's just ready to go, right? And she just walks out the front door. Now, I've got people around to follow her. This is what we do. She goes for several walks a day still, although she's walking much slower and much less, much shorter distances. She still just kind of blasts out the door sometimes, but we've got people to follow her or go with her. They ask, can I go with you? And sometimes she's like, no. And so they just kind of follow along, 50 yards behind. And she's walked into other people's backyards, just turn and go in. And, and by the time they catch up to her, they're pulling her out by the collar. And she gets pissed off, and so she's walked into people's backyards. She's lucky she hasn't been bit by a dog or shot or something. So anyway, she just blasted out, and Nicole, the daughter, followed her and let her go a distance, and then a couple blocks, was still in our community, but down on another cul-de-sac, and kind of just standing around looking like she didn't know where she was going, very confused looking. And Nicole said, hey, would you like, I can guide you home. And she just started screaming at Nicole, no, I don't know who you are. You don't know where I live. And, so Nicole ran home and got her mom. They went off in the car and tried to get her, and they couldn't get her to get in the car. And I mean, they put me on cell phone so I could talk to her. I'm like, Mom, no, these are the people who live with us. We don't have people living with us. Yes, we do. and it was round and round like that, where also another guy, neighbor who knows mom and I saw what was going on, and he came over and helped, and they got to a point where they basically had to manhandle her and shove her in the van, in the pickup. She just didn't want to go. Two neighbors got involved, and the guy said that he saw her. She was walking, and another person had a dog, and the dog snapped and snarled at her, and she still tried to pet it, and she almost got bit. And something I don't really understand this detail, that someone drove a car and got between the dog and my mom, and mom went running the other direction, and that was before. That was when Nicole had run back to our house to get her mom. So I mean, it's a dangerous world for mom out there, being not very bright. And you can't leave her alone for seconds. Even, I mean, literally, Nicole, she ran back, and then they drove over. Mom wasn't alone for more than like 3 minutes, and it still got dangerous for her in that time. And she was so belligerent. And these are all common things with dementia. I'm not breaking any new ground here. It's just the first time I've experienced it with my sweet, loving, nice mom. So anyway, gave her half. It's like 2.5 milligrams or something like that, so it wasn't a full one. Anyway, so this morning, she was on edge, like a seething rage of like, who are these people in our house? I don't know them. And granted, they've only lived here for 4 days now, but they've been around, and I mean, until yesterday, this morning, everything was just, oh, it's so good to see you. And I mean, they're super sweet with her. They're really good with her. And she likes them and she just doesn't like the concept of someone living here. Now, you have to understand, Crystal lived with us for 2 months beforehand. And on the last day that Crystal lived with us, and all through, anytime anybody upstairs moves around and we're downstairs, it's panic time. Mom's like, what's that noise? Who's here? Oh my God, someone's in our house. And I'm like, yeah, it's Crystal. She's lived here for 2 months. And even a few years ago, we had Savannah, my friend Kimet's daughter, lived with us for over a year. And same thing. I mean, after a year, she was still freaked out about somebody being in our house. And then she sees Nicole and Sylvia, and she's fine with them. Until this morning, where it was kind of like, who are these people? Why are they? I mean, they were just they made us breakfast, and they stood around and said, is there anything else I can help you with? I mean, very polite, great service in a restaurant. And mom was like, who are these people? And why are they asking if they can help? I don't need help. And I'm like, I'm trying to be nice about it. But I'm like, Mom, you didn't do anything to make breakfast this morning. Here it is on the table. Why are you mad? And yeah, so that was just this morning. So if she's starting to go to belligerent and combative and stuff, I can't do this. I mean, and it's funny because I've waffled on this 3 times now in the last 6 weeks. Right before I went into the hospital, I had toured a couple facilities to start working the groundwork for knowing a place that I wanted to put mom. And I have a friend who's in the senior care industry who up in Los Angeles, who introduced me to somebody down here in San Diego who helps with placements, and she's been super helpful. So I mean, I know the places that have appropriate settings for somebody who is seeking escape, as they call it, Houdini, trying to get out, because there's a big difference between just assisted living and memory care. So memory care is kind of locked down, but with better services, and they give you classes and things to do, but they don't let you out. And mom's going to freaking hate it. And everyone I talk to says that I'm going to be shocked at the decline I see in the first 30 to 45 days. But I've waffled 3 times on this. I've gone from right before I went into the hospital, like 45 days ago, I toured some facilities, and I'm like, God's punishing me, and he put my ass in the hospital because I'm thinking about putting my mom away. And then, we kind of had a good pattern when Crystal was here for a couple weeks after we were in the hospital. Things were pretty smooth and pretty good. And I was like, oh, we can do this. Even if I have to get someone different in here, if it can't be Crystal, it could be someone else. And then the last few days, it's just blown up again. And, I'm talking to Pace about giving her anti-anxiety meds. which they're going to deliver here later today, so I don't have to knock her out with Oxy. But I don't want to just drug her up, and and I don't want things to be dangerous for her or for me or for the other people here. And so I'm close to having to put her into a place. I mean, I have to put her into a place. I'm close to actually doing it. I'm talking to places, and of course, anything that's covered by Medi-Cal has a 10-month waiting list, 12-month waiting list. When I talked to one that has like a 16-month waiting list, I'm like, are you kidding? What's a 16-month waiting list when you're talking about elderly people like that? It's going to be completely turned over by 16 months from now. Everyone's gone. But yeah, this is so. I don't know. I got to win the lottery or something, because this is gonna. Mom's got next to nothing, and some of these places cost. I mean, $10,000-$12,000 is not. It's easy to go through that every month. I'm like, wow, I still got a mortgage here, and I need to pay for my care and people helping me and that. And yeah, this is gonna suck. And it's killing me to have to put Mom in a place. But I just don't see any alternative at this stage. What I'm doing for her put me in the hospital. Oh, I can't remember. I mentioned I had 4 ulcers, and they're asking me, do you drink? No. Do you smoke? Do you do this? Do you do that? Do you do illegal drugs? Do you do legal drugs? Do you do? My answer to all that was no. And they're like, oh, how about stress? I'm like, oh, let's talk about stress. They're like, yeah, that's what. I mean, basically what's going on here put me in the hospital. I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm dealing with it fairly well, and yet, holy crap, this is barely hanging on by a thread, and I'm barely hanging on by a thread. This has not been a good year. This has not been a good 5 years. Let's face it, we all had COVID, and then I had a normal year, and then I fell down and blew out my knee and was completely sedentary for a year. I was completely sedentary for 10 months, and for the first few months, I couldn't walk beyond the end of my cul-de-sac. So, and then I started to get back on my feet and have a little bit of stamina, and then this all happened with my physical stuff. I mean, with me, and it really set me back. I'm just back to a point of I'm walking now again, but I'm not going very far. I mean, every day I go further, but I really, after being in the hospital, after not eating for 5 days and not doing anything in those 5 days, and then being in the hospital for 5 days, and then they said, don't do anything until you have your surgery, which was a week later. And they're like, don't do anything for a week after the surgery. So, that's a month. Sitting around doing next to nothing for a full month. I'm starting over again. I mean, I've got physical therapy coming out. They're going to be out tomorrow again. And, I'm starting to walk all over again. I'm doing okay. It's not as bad as recovering from my knee, but this has been a really screwed up 5 years. How you doing? Because that's how I'm doing. I feel like I'm hanging on by a thread. Anyway, I hope you're doing better than that, because this has not been fun. I guess the good things are I've got a lot of friends and family who helped out a lot and talked to me. I apologize for doing this in a mass setting, but I just can't have this conversation 60 times. And feel free to get back to me. One-on-one, text me, call me, whatever. Take me out to dinner. Because I'm not getting out. That's the thing. Oh my God, the hospital was a freaking vacation. Oh, what a horrible place to sleep, by the way. But, I mean, I got out. I'm not doing things with people because I'm here helping Mom. And it's not that I'm physically any help, but I'm watching everything and trying to coordinate things. And I'm just doing next to nothing. It was really nice. And Jane was able to come out from Phoenix Memorial Day on Monday because she's having problems with her mom. And so there's just been a lot of physical problems there, and they're helping each other. But she wasn't able to come out and see me like when I was in the hospital and stuff. But she got a day off from caring for her mom and said, let me come down. And she had Monday off. She had to be in the Bay Area on Tuesday. But so she came and hung out with me on Monday. And I felt like that was the first time I've been out of the house in forever. So, yeah. I'm hanging on by a thread. I hope you're doing better. And I don't mean this to sound so horrible. I say all this stuff about Mom, and, I'm to a point where I can say 80% of the time now, she's still loving, fun, funny Mom. But that percentage is changing, and it's starting to move pretty quick. And I can't just get rid of her because she's belligerent, but I have to get rid of her if she's belligerent, if that makes sense. Because we just can't have it be dangerous. Anyway, I'm just babbling now. Thanks for listening. Hope you're doing well. Take care.